Hi there. Today we're going to be painting a 12 by 12 canvas on my table. We're starting with titanium white, which is a heavy body acrylic. I usually use the fluids, but I wanted texture for this painting. We've got Nova Color, Naphthol Cherry, or Naphthol Crimson, I'm sorry. We've got Nova Color Blue Green, which is one of my favorite colors of theirs. And we've got Carbon Black, which is a golden fluid acrylic. I will put a list of these supplies down in the bottom description. I wanted to work with just a limited palette of 2 colors. I just wanted to see what I could do with that. I did a couple of test swatches using the 2 different reds and then the blue-green and then also the phthalo turquoise on the left side there, but I settled on the blue-green with the naphthol red. I'm not really liking that combination now that I've done the painting, but you'll see what I do, and I'd like to hear your suggestions, what you would have done differently. That's always fun to hear. Okay, so right now I'm just mixing the red and the green into more of a gray color, and it's and the white. Yeah, so I'm just going to start with a base, a background color on the canvas, just so I'm not working with the stark white. I just want to eliminate that white. I'm spraying it down so it's not just such a thick layer. I just want a thin layer of the color with the canvas peeking through, so that's what you're going to get here. And that's a little dark. I'm not sure I like that too much. And yeah, so I guess what I do is I critique as I go. So I apologize that you get to listen to my self-critiques here, but I think it's always good to go back and self-reflect and, see what things like, I mean, that's what art's about, exploring and seeing what you do differently, right? Just painting the sides there. And also, just so you're aware, this video, I've got it set for 2 times speed. I don't think I've sped it up more. This time I've cut out the blow drying parts because you don't need to watch paint dry. And I didn't want to watch paint dry, so I just cut those parts out. So I think this entire video is filmed at 2 times speed. And now that we're in the middle of January right now, January 2006, and we're still at the beginning of the year, and I haven't been painting as often as I'd like, so I'm trying to make it more of a habit. I try to do it daily, but I don't always get to paint daily because I work full time. And then sometimes in the evening you're just too tired after a day of work, or you have other things to do, or shopping or cleaning, and so then painting just doesn't happen those days. But I'm trying to make a commitment this year to paint more and paint more frequently. I'd like to paint daily, even if it's just in a sketchbook. So, okay, so I've tilted that up a little bit, so we're going to get a little bit of the water dripping. Just give it a little bit more dimension, I think. So see, we've got a few little streaks there. I think that'll be a pretty background. Okay, let's not get carried away with the drips, Nikki. Go. So yeah, so the beginning of the year, obviously, you think about the goals and what you want to accomplish for the year, and all of my goals are related to art for this year. I want to, obviously paint daily if I can. I want to participate in an art festival. What were my other goals? My dream, and I would like to get this done this year, is to be represented in a gallery. I feel like I had one more goal, and I just can't think of it off the top of my head right now, but it'll come up. So as you can see, just a little while ago, I added some white drips to the painting. Sorry, there's some pens I just dropped. And then wipe some of it off just to create looks like acid wash jeans if you're a Gen Xer, doesn't it? Remember those acid wash jeans, and they were just that's what that looks like to me. I'm sorry. Okay, so we're gonna mark it up now and just get some mark making done. And you can watch as I go. That's a Prismacolor ebony pencil. I love those. They're nice and dark. They're cheap. You can buy a box of 12 of them for a few bucks. I just start lightly, kind of trying not to control the pencil too much by holding it at the end. Make a few squiggles here and there, and oh yeah, you can see I've added a second canvas too. So I'm trying to be a little bit more efficient and do 2 paintings at the same time. So get to see the progress of 2 paintings today. I forgot I did that. So as to the goals, I'm flipping to my page right there where I think I wrote my goals down in a video. Oh, sell my first painting. I haven't offered my paintings for sale before, so my other goal is to sell my first painting. So I've got 4 goals. Sell my first painting, apply to and be accepted into an art festival, become represented by an art gallery. That would just be the dream. I'm not sure if I'm ready for that yet or if there's one that would like me, but and then I want to attend 2 quality art workshops. So I do have one scheduled for May. That's going to be a week-long workshop in New Orleans, and I don't have a second one picked out yet, but I need to find one. So I'm trying to balance that with my husband's want for going on a vacation. So we'll see what happens there. Maybe I can multi-purpose and take a vacation/workshop. So this marker that I'm using after the pencil, it's a Sakura solid marker, solidified paint, and it's water resistant, so it doesn't smear when I apply water or when I apply additional paint, like the Stabilo woody pencils do. So I like that one because it dries quickly. It's a little thick. I wish they'd have it in a thinner marker type, but no, I really like the paint that comes out of that marker. Now I'm just adding the carbon black just to have a little bit more dimension as I do layers. Just keep adding layers and paint, and things get covered up. Some of these marks will be covered all the way. My hope is to have some of these marks peeking through the color once I get that applied. So I think the mark making is a fun part. I need to figure out some different types of mark making because it's not just squiggles and splotches. We need to get beyond that, I think. I don't need to, but I would just like to because I like learning new things. So at this point, I'm drawing the black. I don't mind colors smearing or running together, but when black runs together with a color, if I apply paint over wet black, it'll just look too muddy and dirty. It's not necessarily a look that I like, so that's why I dry the black before I add the color. And the brush I'm using, it's just a cheap little brush that I found in my daughter's supplies from art school. So it's not a fancy brush, just something cheap. And that's what most of my brushes are anymore. I have bought expensive brushes that are maybe $20 or $30. The ones with the synthetic bristles, I'm not sure. The bristles tend to get a little bit frayed the way I scrub sometimes. So the cheap ones I'm okay with ruining if I have to. So it looks like I just mixed some of the green with the red there just to make a little bit of a darker red because red and green, I don't think this is exactly a complementary color. Red and green are complementary colors. I don't think red and blue-green are, but I think that's kind of maybe where I went wrong on this color combination for this painting. I think if I had a tertiary color to go with it, such as like lime green or orange, I think it probably would have ended up better at the end, but you'll see at the end what it looks like. And again, I would love to hear your opinions as far as what you would have done color-wise. I think any constructive criticism that I receive, I am very open to it, and I love hearing it from you. And I think everybody has something to offer, and I'm always willing to listen. So yeah, I've got different tones or different shades of the red there. So it looks like there's a little bit more of a coral because I added white. A little pinkish, kind of a pinkish coral color with that red. The crimson, it's not, necessarily a straight up red. I think it kind of leans a little bit more red, a little bit more orange toward that side. I'm just going to do the same thing over here, just adding another layer that'll be peeking out through the other layers. And one thing, I'm not adding music to this video. I think I had music on another one that I didn't talk over. So I guess another opinion I would love to know, if you're willing to answer this, is do you prefer having music and no talking, or do you prefer talking and no music? Or maybe you'd like light music in the background with talking. I don't know. I'm new to this YouTube stuff, so I'd love to hear your feedback on that too, but if you're willing to offer. And be kind. Yeah, I like that. I like that coral color a lot. That's a really pretty color. I'm not sure the background is right for it either. I think that background's, I don't know. I don't know how I feel about that. We'll see. I've taken a couple of online courses and with different artist instructors, and yeah, I don't know when I adapted to this more squiggly, this free-flowing, expressionistic style of just applying lines and curves and fields of color. But I like it. It just reflects, I think, what's going on in my mind often. I've got a late diagnosis of ADHD, and I think it's just kind of conveys what all the thoughts that are going on in my head at the same time, which makes it challenging to sit down and do things sometimes. But when I see, it looks like chaos, doesn't it? I think sometimes, especially to people who don't have that ADHD mind, but it looks like chaos, but it's calming to me to paint like that. So yeah, I actually kind of like how it is right now. I think if I had left it with the red and black and the gray, that would have been cool. I'm getting back into my swatch book again, those are the grays. So when I mix the blue-green and then that crimson, I get that selection of grays. That's what those grays at the bottom are. They're just the color combination mixed with black, or mixed together and then mixed with white. So you get the different shades of gray and different kinds of neutrals. Sometimes it can be a little bit muddy, but I think muddy is sometimes a good neutral if you add enough white or black, depending on which way you're wanting to go. So I'm just refilling the palette here. I've used up a lot of the white and the blue or blue-green already, and freshening it up a little bit. And obviously they're acrylics, so they dry faster, so sometimes I have to freshen up a little bit. Sometimes I'll put the paint on the palette and then not use it for a while so that it dries up a little bit too much, and I guess I waste paint a little bit that way. And now that I'm stopping and looking at that one on the right, I think that one would look cool if I had some collage elements applied also before we did the red. I haven't done the multimedia or collage paintings in a long time, so I think I want to start doing that again too at some point. And yeah, I did participate in a lengthy collage workshop online, and if you've got an artist that you really like and they offer a workshop, I do recommend you take it. You learn so much from other artists, and I don't think any of the online classes or online courses that I've participated in, I've never regretted any of them. I can think of three that I've done. There are probably more, but I can think of three off the top of my head right now that I've really enjoyed. And I always learn something and pick something up and incorporate it in what you do. You learn a few things here and there and mix them all together, and you've got something of your own, right? Yeah, and I don't dislike the blue-green there at all either. I like that color there, especially the light version of it. Yeah, so I think one of the, you know, I think at some point in this video would be a point that I probably would have just quit the painting and not finished what I was doing just because I got frustrated at some point. And I'm thinking right now I liked the blue green there when it was just the freehand lines. But then I started adding these more controlled splotches, and I'm not sure I like that too much. So I'm not sure if this is a point where it's starting to look wrong yet. But I think I like to have different brush strokes using different size brushes and different shapes of brushes. So, I mean, maybe that's all I could have gotten on that right panel there. So yeah, I'm sorry, you get to hear my thoughts as far as what I don't like about it. What I do like about it, I do like the red crimson color a lot, and I like the coral. And I even like that light, icy blue-green color. I think that's pretty. I think they're pretty together. I think that's a pretty combination. So I think what I don't like about the result isn't so much with the color choices, but probably with what I do toward the end of the video. So you get to see and then let me know what you think. But, at some point, I mean, you can just stop and quit, which is what I tend to do. I tend to, if I go too far in the painting or if I go the wrong way, I do tend to quit and then just cover it up and go a different path. But it's, when you make mistakes and when something looks wrong and you push through it, it's just I think it's a point where we as artists grow and we learn because, every mistake we make is information, right? It's something we learn from. And I think I gave the example in another video about a business person or an entrepreneur. If they have a business that fails, some people might certainly quit and give up and get frustrated and, demoralized. But somebody who's got a goal and a vision is going to start up another business and learn from the failure and learn from the mistakes they made and then do something opposite so they can grow the business. Okay, so we had a little jump here. I'm sorry about that. So you can see that I added some more mark making. I just kind of felt that it was just too stark, and I'd covered up a lot of the mark making, and I wanted to have some more, so before we add some more layers, I'm gonna add some of the white paint marker. I think that was a Sakura brand. And adding the white, and kind of that kind of fake handwriting style. I love that, actually. I've done that in a lot of other paintings and I really like it. But I think it's called a semic handwriting, where it doesn't really look like anything, or it looks like handwriting, but it doesn't really say anything. But the white, and the black, they each add a different, opposite contrast. And I think when you've got different values and different values of color and white and black, you've got a good contrast, and that creates a great interest for the viewer's eye. This right here, it's a house paint. It's called Fog, and I got this. I think that's the last bit of my sample from my art class in New Orleans last fall. I don't remember the brand. I don't remember what the brand is called, but the color was Fog, and it's just a nice neutral gray. And I'm just kind of dry brushing it on to create a little bit of veil. So I'm not completely obliterating the color there, but I'm just veiling it. So you can still see the color and the marks through that once I get it thinned out a little bit. And I think that brush is one that was one of my good ones that I wrecked up a little bit, so the ends are a little bit frayed. So that's a good one for dry brushing because the ends are already frayed. I'm just adding a little bit of a neutral place, and that's a good place for the eye to rest. So you're not looking at just complete and utter chaos. I'm covering some of it, or veiling some of it. I can't think of a different word for veiling. It's kind of like your sheer curtains. You're still getting the light in, but you're still and the view from outside a little bit, but you're kind of but the view is softer, and you've got that sheer layer that is just a softer veil. And that's all I'm going to say about that, because I just don't know what else to say about that. I kind of lost track of my train of thought there. Got away from me. Sorry. And yeah, so you see I sprayed a little bit of water just because I wanted to thin it down a little bit more. I think it was a little bit thick in some areas, and I just wanted some more of the color to peek through. So I just sprayed it with a little water, and I'm wiping the excess. Yeah, I really like that white paint marker there. I think that looks really good. So what I was saying before was that, every mistake we make, and I think this painting, I think it looks pretty good right now, but I think at the end I'm not going to like it. But every mistake is information, so maybe from this painting I'll learn when to stop. That would be a good lesson to learn, if only we could figure that out, right? How often do we go beyond the point of no return? So, but yeah, so we learn from our mistakes. If you stay long enough to work through it, I think, or evaluate and figure out where the mistake is made, your work gets stronger. Your work gets stronger, braver, and more honest, because you're dealing with the mistakes. You're not hiding them, and you're learning from them. It's growth. It gives you growth. So I would encourage you not to skip the mistakes like I do, where I just get frustrated and paint over a canvas. Just kind of work through them. And I think that's kind of what I'm working here. I think this is a good point where I should have just stopped. This is where I should have stopped. But I don't. We've got another half hour to go. Sorry. And I think that I think that's one of the things that I'm 55 right now, and I think that's one of the good things about being the age I'm at, and maybe you're at around that age as well. But I think when we get older, we're wiser and, have a maturity level where we're able to learn from mistakes easier. We're willing to. That's kind of the difference, is if you're willing to learn from mistakes. You don't always have to dig your heels in and be right about everything. Um, we observe when we make mistakes. We learn from them. We know what we did wrong, and we rectify it, right? So, certainly people who are younger make those mistakes and learn from them as well. I wanted to just pause here for a minute. That's a Catalyst plastic scraper. I think the brand is Princeton, and I'll put a link to that in my description down there. And I think I showed you that I was adding some more of the white paint, that titanium white. And like I said, I like that titanium white, the heavy body, because you get really good brush strokes and you can add texture. And I'm going to do that here just to get a little bit more white. Oh, and I've mixed the red with the white, so it's kind of pinkish. I don't dislike that either. I kind of like that. So that's going on. I'm applying that really thick so we can add some texture. And, you can, if you look closely, you might see some brush strokes in there. Some little, I don't necessarily like clumps, so if there's a clump or a glob, I'll kind of remove that. But I like the brush strokes, and I like the thick texture. It gives it interest. And I like that I didn't use the stark white either, so it's kind of the pinkish white there, because I mixed the crimson. Okay, so I'm taking the end of a small brush and just kind of scratching in some lines, and that's kind of the texture that I like. Got a little messy there, so maybe we can fix that up a little bit, but it's not going to be all just harsh lines there. We're going to soften it up a little bit, so it doesn't look so crazy and chaotic. But yeah, I'm going back and watching this after I painted this, and I would encourage you to self-reflect as you're working on a piece. And normally I wouldn't do a whole session just at the table like this. I would, take some pauses and, come back in 10 or 15 minutes and look at it constructively. Maybe that was my mistake. I didn't do that often enough here, if at all. I don't recall that I did that, actually. Maybe if, I left the desk to, maybe take a restroom break or go get a soda or water. And but I just think I kind of skipped the part about thinking critically about what I was doing. Like I said, I don't mind those pinkish blocks of color with the lines. I think I'm kind of not digging those on that right panel. I'm not digging those spots. Yeah, like that spot. I'm not digging those spots on the left there on that right panel. So I don't know. It's not awful, but I think they would have looked better if I had stopped with just the white field without those spots on the right side there. And looking back at this panel on the left, I think I did a little bit too much of the white field, and I'm not digging the shape either, so we'll see. Maybe I like that panel better. Who knows? I have to look at it now and see. But yeah, I would encourage you not to skip the part about, taking a break and then looking at it from, even stepping back 10 feet and looking at it from a distance. And, when I have a bigger painting that I'm working on, I'll just put my chair about, 8 or 10 feet back. I don't think my studio space is that much bigger than 10 feet. So, but yeah, I put my chair back, sit back and look at it and just kind of evaluate what parts I like about it and what parts I don't. And if I need to stop and if I need to keep going, it's kind of the benefit of stopping and thinking rather than just pushing through. Pushing through is a good thing, but you gotta stop and think before you push through sometimes. So I think that's my mistake. Also, on that left panel, I can see I covered up a lot of those white marks, those white scribble marks that I made, and I wish I hadn't done that because I liked those a lot. I like how they look on the right panel. So I think that's going to be the title of this video, is going to be self-critique, learn from my mistakes. I think if I kept going, if I keep going, I think all of my videos are probably going to be mistakes that we're going to learn from, aren't they? I think I have to learn to accept and enjoy and, like what I do. I'll get to that point, I think, when I learn when to stop. That's when that'll happen. If you have any tips for how to learn when to stop, I would appreciate them in the comments. Yeah, so I think part of the self-evaluation when you're, self-critiquing your art is, it's a process, right? Mistakes are all part of the process, and sometimes you need a mindset shift as well. So I think maybe my mindset shift here is, maybe I went into this thinking, hey, I've got to make a painting for YouTube, so I better just work through it and keep going. And I think if I wasn't thinking that, I would have taken my time more and not worked through 2 paintings at the same time and going faster than I should have. I don't know. But hey, if you stick with my channel, you'll get to, watch me grow and learn as I go. And I'm definitely willing to share my mistakes and what I learn. Because I think it's good to hear. I think it's good to hear from people that are doing the same thing you're doing. It can be frustrating when you're watching somebody that's been painting forever and have gone to art school, and painting for a long time. They've got the experience and they know, so they're not making mistakes, or you're not seeing that they're making mistakes. So I guess I just want to offer encouragement. Just don't get frustrated by your mistakes. And kind of in the jump there, I think before the blow dryer, I added some more spots that I don't care for anymore. I don't like those blue-green spots on top of the white. And so I think I'm just trying to make it better and adding some more elements that kind of fit in with those spots. And this is just the darker green mixed with the red to make it darker blue-green. I don't dislike those rectangles at all, those shapes. I like the color. I think it gives a good contrast, especially because I've covered a lot of the black. Just kind of mixing some more of the red in with that blue-green to make it darker. But yeah, so my whole goal of this channel is, to be truthful and honest in what I'm sharing with you. You get to see my mistakes and you get to see what I did wrong. And I want you to be encouraged too, because, when you make mistakes, and you do something that you don't like, just learn from it. That's today's lesson. We're going to learn from our mistakes. And I think growth as an artist, I think it's, obviously it's important because we grow, and, you grow in different styles maybe. Monet changed styles. I think part of that was because he was losing his vision, so it became more impressionistic. Even more impressionistic than he was originally. But, we develop our styles, we learn new things, and I think it's just an important part of being an artist, is that you're just continually growing, learning from others, learning from yourself. That's very important, to learn from yourself. But I think when we've got a block, we've got a creative block in our head, or you've got a block that you don't know what to do next. I think a lot of that can come from a lack of confidence and feeling unworthy and untalented, and I can tell you, looking at these two panels, I'm feeling very untalented right now. Um, but so you start questioning yourself, and if you don't sit back and contemplate what the lesson is from this, you'll always feel unworthy. And that's not how I want to feel, and that's not how I want you to feel. So the way to fight feeling unworthy is to learn. And I think I need to have a drinking game here at this point. I think we need to, take a drink of your wine glass for every time I say the word learn or grow. I think that's going to be the challenge. Maybe I'll put that in the description. Get your favorite beverage and take a sip every time I say the word lean or grow. Learn or grow, I'm sorry. But just because we make mistakes and, just because we're sometimes insecure about the art that we're doing, that doesn't mean we don't have value as artists, and that doesn't mean that our art doesn't have value. I think that a lot of times our art, I think there's somebody looking for your art, right? So, I tend to post things that I sometimes regret posting on my personal Facebook page, which I set to private for a reason. I know a lot of the people that I'm friends with, we have disagreeing points of view, and I tend to express mine a little too much, but that doesn't mean that my opinion is not valuable. It just means that somebody doesn't agree with it. Just like somebody doesn't like my painting, that doesn't mean it's not valuable to somebody else, right? I think there's a good fit for everybody and everything. People have different tastes and different styles, and maybe somebody likes my mistake art better than my not mistake art. I don't know. I tell you, my favorite painting that I have right now that I think I made it a couple years ago. I like it a lot. I love the colors and I love what I did with it. But somebody in my immediate family, thinks it looks like it's smiling at them. And I don't see that, but I think they don't like it very much. But it's in my living room, so I can see it because I like it. And that's all that matters to me. It's got value to me. I don't think the world needs perfect art, right? I don't know who's got perfect art. Well, I'm sure there are some perfect. The Mona Lisa is perfect art, okay? Right? But the world doesn't need perfect art. It just needs art and more of it. And art helps, it brings beauty to the world. Not all art is beautiful, but the message it can bring is beautiful. The message it can bring can be painful and violent sometimes, and sometimes that's just the message we need to see at that time too, right? But I guess for my art, I want it to be beautiful. I want it to be fun and colorful and exciting. And, sometimes, like I said, it looks a little chaotic, but that's just because that's how my mind works. And, other people can relate to that, I think. But yeah, so yeah, that's I'm doing a lot of thinking today. I'm sorry about that. So this color I've added, and then I added to the other color. That's just some of the red, that the crimson color mixed with the green to make it darker, and then mixed with white to mute it down a little bit. I'm not sure I'm digging that so much. I kind of liked the teal and the shapes, the outline shapes with the dark teal, but I'm not sure I'm digging this darker color. I think it's a little. I don't know. I'm not sure that it doesn't go with the vibe that I want. And I think this is the point where I definitely should have stopped and maybe added a different color or added another color. And I think maybe my mistake is in the two colors that I selected, because like I said, the crimson, the red, it's the complementary color is green, not blue-green. So if you look at if you have a color wheel, maybe I'll put a picture of that up on the screen here. But if you look at the color wheel, the opposite color of red is green. The opposite color of blue-green is red-orange. So maybe I should have gone with a cadmium red light. That's more of an orange-looking color, like just a hint of orange. In my eye anyway, but maybe that's just where I went wrong, is that I used the wrong color. I liked it before we added this dark red though. I didn't mind the colors before we added that dark red. It just doesn't look right there, which is why I'm covering it up with the lighter red, which is toned down with the white. It's just the crimson with white. And see, in there, I'm just being too exact and too perfect. When you've got the rest is so chaotic, that's too orderly, I think. It's definitely too orderly. Just the precision, I know it's not technically precise, but in comparison with the rest of the elements of this particular painting, it's too precise for this particular painting. But yeah, we'll see where we go with this. I think we've got probably about 15 or 20 minutes left of the video, I think. And if I were merciful, I'd probably just speed it up to a 5x speed so you can get it done and over with faster. But anyway. But yeah, I think, even these two paintings, now that I don't like them anymore, they still have value to me because I'm learning. Oh, take a drink of your wine or your Coke, whatever. Now, I do like these dots that I've added and the circles. I like those elements a lot. I think, they're not precise or exact, but they're just little bits of visual interest, I think. I like those. I think I'm just objecting right now to that brownish red color that I added underneath those medium squares. But yeah, so yeah, there's value to this exercise that I'm doing. I'm self-critiquing myself. You get to hear my self-critique. I'd love to hear your critiques in the comments. So, we can all learn from each other. I think that's one of the fun things that I've really liked about YouTube. I've been consuming and watching YouTube for years, and watching other people's art videos for years. And, I'm part of me is thinking, who am I to be putting my videos out there, right? But, hey, if I can help you learn from my mistakes, it's a win-win for both of us, right? And I think part of that was my challenge. My goals for the year were to sell my first painting, which isn't really true. I've sold art before, but I mean for this time in my life. Sell my first art, be in a show, be in a gallery, and take a good class. I think the first three, the important part of that is just getting over myself, right? And being visible and being transparent and putting my art out there, whether I like it or not. I think that's just been a challenge. And, if I'm willing to putting this out in the public, it's going to be less nerve-wracking when I put something that I like out there, right? So I think I'm feeling a little vulnerable sharing these kinds of videos just because I know I'm not nearly as good as some of y'all are. I'm definitely not as good as most of the internet or the YouTube artists are, the ones that I watch anyway. And it's on one hand that I've got the who am I to be doing this, but who am I not to? I guess everybody's got something to share. Everyone's got value. And I think, maybe there's a reason that you're watching me right now and that I'm doing this for you to watch. And my hope is just to be an encouragement to you, and just like I've been encouraged by other artists that I've watched. I don't think I'm necessarily inspiring anybody, but maybe you can learn with me and I'll learn with you, and you can watch me learn. So I've got this small brush here, and it's just a small, it looks like, I think that's just a small cheap one from Michael's or something. Artist Loft, whatever brand that is. I think that is from Michael's. It's just filling in some spots and, adding a little bit more color, a little bit more contrast. I like having different values of the colors. I really like those pink dots a lot. I think they're cute. And I was just such a little prim and proper little 80s teenager, and I went to Christian school, so we had a dress code, and so I frequently wore dresses, and I loved to wear polka dotted tights, or not, I guess they weren't tights, they were more like nylons or pantyhose, but they had the Swiss dot pattern. That was my very favorite because I thought that was just cute, and polka dots were always my favorite, and plaids, and maybe that's why I still like polka dots right now, and I think that's just so cute in this painting. I think if there's one element that I like, well, I think my favorite elements are the parts that I've covered, honestly, on the left panel anyway. The white marker writing that you can see that in the left or on the right side. I like that a lot toward the top. I just wish I'd left more of it open on the left side panel. Yeah, I'm just filling in some more colors and, kind of filling in some spaces. And I do really like the texture on those white blocks, or those white color shapes. I mean, they're not really shapes, they're blobs, really. I mean, the fields of white paint there. I like the texture. And I feel I'm at the point right now where I'm just kind of rambling and I'm probably irritating y'all. So if I'm annoying, I am so sorry. I'll try to make my next video shorter. I won't do 2 paintings at a time anymore for videos. Yeah, I'm just kind of cleaning up some things. Yeah, and you know what? And I'm looking at it. It's not too bad. I still don't like those muted red rectangles. I don't like those. The rest of these paintings I don't dislike very much at all, actually. And I'm adding the dark blue-green there just to make the pink pop out a little bit more, just because it kind of looks like it's getting washed into the white. It would have been easier if I had started with the darker color underneath that layer. And that's the other thing. I tend to like to, you saw that I started with the black at the bottom layer. I do tend to start with the black first and just have little hints of black showing through. I had been to a Parade of Homes tour over one Christmas season, and one of the homes, the designer who had done some of the rooms had said that she likes to have something black. I mean, her rooms were not black at all. They didn't have black paint like my husband's office. He painted his walls almost black, but that the black was not part of the color theme for that decor. But she felt that every single room that she decorated, that she designed, had to have some black object in, and usually like maybe it was a black picture frame or black in a painting. And I do like having black in almost all of my paintings because I just think it's a level of depth once you add all the layers on top of it. I think it just it just brings it to life, I think, in my eye anyway. So yeah, so I got distracted by the house parade. The I start with the black, and then I typically tend to go with, get a little bit darker with each layer, but and then toward the end here, like I've added those dark teal shapes. You could add those afterward, obviously, for a little more contrast. But I think when you go from dark to light, you've got just a nice feeling of depth there. And I'll bet you if I did the converse, starting light and going dark, that would have a similar but opposite effect of creating depth, but probably going in rather than popping out at you. Does that make sense? I don't know. But I think when you kind of go in an order like that, it kind of tends to, I like the depth that gives. Yeah, just adding some more pops of color. I think I had obliterated too much of the red, so I'm just kind of putting in more of the red there because it needs to have some red in there, right? It's good for the contrast, good for just interest. It's good, interesting color. And I very seldom paint with red unless I'm using a whole bunch of other colors or mixing red with something else. So I wanted, for these two, I wanted to use red. That's kind of why I focused on the red. I maybe should have picked a different color, a different type of red paint, but that's why I'm adding red paint here. I just want to see the red. And I like it, actually. I like the red there. Yeah, I do like that a lot. It's just, it makes it look better with the red there. So yeah, so clearly, I mean, we're well past the point where I'm thinking to myself that maybe I ruined this. Maybe I didn't. I don't know, but like I was saying before, I don't think mistakes are not. You may feel like you're failing, but mistake is not a proof that you're failing. Making a mistake is evidence that you're paying attention and you're pushing past. You're pushing past what you already know. So I think that each wrong mark that I make is teaching my eye and my hand and maybe hopefully my instincts to training myself to know what to do better next time or what to avoid next time. So part of working through a failure or a mistake is you're staying with the process instead of quitting. So you do have that opportunity to learn. Take a drink. So those so-called mistakes, they become, I think they can be the reason that my art will level up, hopefully. I mean, that's the goal, right? We want to improve and we want to level up our game and level up, our skill. And making the mistakes and observing them and observing what's right and what's wrong and making corrections as you go. Those are the reason that we finally level up as an artist, I think. Not that I know, I haven't done that yet, but we'll get there. We'll get there. And, kind of along the same vein, I had a kind of an interesting experience in a Facebook group talking about the application process for being juried into an art festival. And I've never done an art festival before, and I don't have the proper equipment for like an outdoor festival. This particular one, you need to have a 10 by 10 foot tent. And submit a Photoshop or a photo of the booth that you intend to have at this festival. And the festival rules did make an exception for that. If you don't have a tent, you can submit a grouping of your art. And I wasn't clear on that what that meant. So I'd asked in this particular group, I don't have a tent yet. I want to apply. What can I do instead of having the booth shot? And I was probably in the trying to be short and brief. I didn't give out the information that I didn't just provide all the information. So I didn't disclose that. Yeah, they have a alternate option for people who don't have a booth photo. I didn't explain that clearly, and I had not more than one. I probably had one or two comments saying, "Well, if you're not going to buy a tent first and take your shot, then you're not ready to be in a show." I'm like, that doesn't make any sense. Why would I spend hundreds of dollars, and some tents are thousands of dollars, on applying for a show if I don't know if I'm going to be juried into the show, given the fact that there's such a high percentage, or such a low percentage of people that are getting into these shows. And I didn't want to spend the money. I can spend the money. I just don't want to just yet if I don't know I'm going to get into this particular show, because I might not want to be in more than one or two shows this year. But just I think some people, I think they probably had good intentions, saying, well, if you don't have the equipment, how do you expect to do a festival? And my thought process was, if I get juried in, I'm going to get the equipment and I'll be in the festival. And I probably wasn't very clear on that, but I just thought it was just really funny to hear from another artist telling you, if you don't have this or that, if you don't have a tent, you're not ready. And that's kind of like sometimes what we tell ourselves is, you're not good enough, so you're not ready, and you're not worthy. Your art is not worthy, so you're not ready, or you haven't been doing this long enough, so you're not ready. And I probably am not ready quite yet for prime time, so maybe I'm trying to do all this prematurely. But that's kind of why I wanted to share my journey into the next level of my art with you, just because I don't feel worthy most of the time, and I know other people don't too, and I want to share that with you, and I want to encourage you, because I guess I'm trying to encourage myself as well. But we can encourage each other. We don't have to tell somebody, you're not ready if this, and you're not ready if that. Most of the people in that particular comment thread did give me good advice and good suggestions. And one person happened to be selling her tent, so we linked up, and I'm discussing that with her as a possibility. But it's, you don't have to be nice all the time. I think nice is a different thing, but you should be kind. And maybe there's some context or some tone that's lost online communications, but I just want you to know, if you don't feel ready, there are things that you can do to feel ready, and you don't have to be 100% ready. You can be most of the way ready to put your art out there. Maybe you don't even need that. Maybe it's just all in your head, and you just don't think yourself as being ready, and maybe everybody else thinks you are. I don't know. Well, you've listened to almost about an hour of my ramblings. I appreciate your time, and I appreciate you, watching my videos here. It's, I don't. I had an aggressive plan set forth, made when I first started thinking about doing this, but I had to dial it back because, my job is not a YouTube content creator. I'm just putting myself out here to help you guys, help encourage other people, and, get encouragement myself. So this isn't my job. This is, just something I'm doing just to be myself out there and be vulnerable. And like I said, I just really appreciate your time and, spending it with me. And again, if you have any thoughts in the comments as far as my mistakes or what to do, I would appreciate hearing that. But thanks for sticking around with me. I appreciate it. Again, I'm Nicole Byers, and follow me at Nicole Byers Art. Thank you.